the dignitaries on the dais, all the delegates. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Keshav and also a big thank you I'd like to say Parth Sarathy Garu for having personally invited me over. Friends, what I'm going to talk in the next 20 minutes might sound a bit unconventional. It might also sound a bit controversial. But I must also sort of share with you, last week there was a meeting in Egypt, and some of these things which I'm going to talk, I spoke there. It was interesting that none of the foreign delegates find it surprising. It's only in India that many of these ideas, when you also sort of discuss it, after my presentation, they do sound controversial, and I'm surprised at it. So I'd like to go ahead with it. The topic itself, I would say, is controversial, nevertheless. I'm starting with a plan. This is after the first 13 years of BT cotton. At CICR, we have these public sector varieties. Some of them are very old. They're as old as something like about 30 years. But these were some of the best material that was available ever in this country. Now, these have been transformed with the MON 531, which is today, as everyone knows, that this event, it is out of patent, it's a single gene, and we must use them. The second initiative is, we have at least about 16 of these public sector varieties, which are very new, and we have signed up with the Delhi University, we have also signed up with the Tamil Nadu Agriculture University with their 2 genes. This is an attempt to put together these public sector, but I must also share with you, this will take time. It might take the next 5 years for us to complete all the biosafety requirements and so on. But the first initiative, these 21 public sector varieties, in my view, do not really require anything at all. Probably we just need to jump into the field. Now, what is it that we intend doing it? These BT variety seeds must be provided to these 2 states. Why only these 2 states, I must explain. Why is it only Telangana and Maharashtra? Not that because I stay in Maharashtra and that my home state is Telangana. Certainly, when those are not the criteria. The criteria is these 2 states put together, they cover about half of the country's cotton area. And primarily, these are the 2 states which suffer the most in terms of moisture stress. Almost 100%, they're not irrigated. It's just dependent, in fact, on rain-fed agriculture. So these 2 states, if we are able to go ahead with these public sector BT varieties, much can change in the country. The state governments can test these, they can release them. The event is already released by the GAC, and since agriculture is a state subject, I'm sure if the minister decides, they can actually release it in the state without, probably at the most a letter should go to the Ministry of Environment to inform them that we are going to use them here. And maybe they need to say yes. But even there, over the past 2 months, much has happened. One, that there's a lot of clarity, that there is no patent on the MON 531. Not in India. In fact, even internationally, there is nothing. So we can still go ahead. But this has been agreed upon at the top level everywhere. There is a criticism. Many of my colleagues have also been telling me that first, it's about varieties and hybrids. They say that varieties, oh well, all these varieties were already there, so what is it that you're doing? Second, that this is a single gene. Now, where's the advantage? Take a critical look at the data, any data that is available, whether, I'm talking about the data which are available on the Ministry of Environment, on the Ministry, on the website of the Ministry of Agriculture, and also with the Cotton Advisory Board. What you'll find is, and I'm saying this with complete responsibility, after 2007, there's hardly any evidence to say that Bollworm 2 with the 2 genes ever conferred any advantage in this country to cotton. I'm repeating it again. There's hardly any evidence anywhere to say that Bollworm 2 conferred any advantage to cotton in this country. Now, this is important because this event, which is MON 531, is actually very good. Probably it is the best in the world. Fortunately, it's out of patent, so why not use it? And I still believe that it is going to be effective at least until 2020. Now, if one says that the pink bollworm has developed resistance to the single gene, I would quickly add that the pink bollworm has also developed resistance to the two genes put together, to Bolgar2 in Gujarat. And it is just a story about Gujarat alone. Rest of the country, Helicobacter parmigera, MON 531 is still very effective. And I firmly believe until 2020, we will still sort of continue to use it. Now, the other thing is, what is this answer about varieties? Globally, everyone, without exception, some of the best countries where they get yields as high as 60 quintals as national average, I'm talking about seed cotton, and something like 2,000 kg lint per hectare, all of them are using a common technology, which India doesn't. That is that of a short duration variety. That is what we need for India. Unfortunately, this question is asked time and again, that why varieties? It was the same old system, farmers were using it earlier, so what is new in what you're talking? What is new is, earlier we never had short duration varieties. All our varieties would be at least 6 to 7 months to 8 months even. The other thing was about the density. Normally, the planting density was something like about 9 to 10,000 plants maximum on the higher side per acre. What is this definition about high density? The global definition is 50,000 plants per acre. Anything less than that is not considered high density. Why did high density evolve? I can go on, and which is very important. Why is it that all these countries, everywhere, there is hardly any country, out of 80 cotton growing countries, there is hardly any other country other than India where they cultivate hybrids. Even China doesn't. China has so much of manpower. If this is such a good technology, to me, it is just a value capture. It is just that because we wanted the farmer to buy seed every year from the market, so we went through it. And from 40% area, it took 30 years in this country, after the introduction of hybrids in 1971, it took 30 years for the hybrids to reach 38%. There was a struggle there. But because everyone was desperate, and why were we so desperate? Why was it that India was the only country in the world where the average insecticide sprays were something like 20? In places like Guntur, it used to be 28. In Gujarat, it was 17. In Punjab, it was 24. No other country in the world has this kind of an average. The maximum ever that any country could get to was about 11, 12, 13 applications of insecticides on cotton. Why did this happen in India? We must consider. This table does speak about it. I'm not going to go into all those numbers, but just sufficient. I mean, it's adequate for us to understand. One, it is the duration of cotton in this country. On an average, it is 7 to 8 months. Whereas globally, it is just 150 days. In Turkey, it is 130 days. There are countries, now 130 days, it is so easy to manage. What is easy to manage? It's the flowering period. Basically, it is flowers which attract the moths of the bollworms. The moment the crop starts flowering, the moths are there, they get into the fields, they lay eggs. Now, this is what happens. India has the longest flowering period. Not only now, I'm not talking about BT, even before BT, we had a flowering period which would stretch for about 3 months. Even today, you walk into any of these fields, it is still flowering. Full, full, and full. Now, that has a connotation. What happens is, when we were inviting the bollworms, you had to spray. 1 spray, 2 sprays, 3 sprays, you disrupt the ecosystem, you do everything, and then finally you end up with a system where you feel without insecticides you can't do anything, and subsequently, without BT there is no life. It's not true. There was this expert from Turkey in the last meeting that was talking about in Egypt. When I was asking them, you have an excellent variety. In fact, in their presentations, you have an excellent variety which is slightly of a longer duration of what? 170 days, and which is very high yielding. She quickly said, sorry, 130, 140 days, otherwise we'll run into the pests. Why is it that in our country we are not thinking on those lines? So it's about this 210 days versus 150 days, flowering days 80 versus 20 days in India. Square to bolls, we have the longest, and this is what happened in this country. A long duration cotton. Why did this happen again? I must tell this. One, because the density was less. If the planting density is less, you are expecting each plant to produce something like 100 bolls to get 40 quintals. Now, if you are expecting each plant, this is the story with hybrids as well. If each plant has to produce 100 bolls, do you expect it to produce just within 150 days? Certainly not. So it extends, and when it extends, it goes on extending. Fine, it might eventually produce 100 bowls, but it would have taken 7 to 8 months. And if there is irrigation, if there's a bit of water, you had it. So they go on irrigating, inviting pests, and that story went on and on and on. So why are the yields low? Low plant density, need more bowls per plant. More bowls need long duration. Moisture stress at bowl formation stage. I must share this information with you. A bit of science, not really much. Cotton plants actually need water and nutrients most, something like about 4 kg nitrogen per hectare as compared to 0.5 kg earlier, 4 kg at the flowering and the bowl formation. If the plants don't get that, it's gone. It's actually gone. Here in India, when you are extending this entire flowering period, we are putting it to a stress. If there's no moisture, the plant doesn't take nutrients. In rain-fed conditions of Maharashtra and also in Telangana, this is the primary problem. First of all, the sowing is late because unless and until there's soil moisture, you're not asking farmers to go ahead with the sowing. We cannot because the seed is expensive. So when the sowing is late, by the time it comes into flowering, there's hardly any moisture left in the soil. So even if you give it nutrients, it doesn't take. And then we complain that the yields are low. How can the yields be high? So in a very simplistic manner, I'm saying a single point solution, though it might sound awfully simplistic, but variety, short duration variety will certainly provide the answers for this country to break all the yield barriers. That is what Australia is doing, 150 days, 160 days, maximum 170 days. Now, why is the bollworm and whitefly? I did say long duration of reproductive phase, like hybrids, heterotic vigor, hybrid vigor, is manifest in leaves, leaves and leaves and leaves. For the first 60 days, you go to any field, when we go to North India, the Sardar is so happy, as big, as tall as the Sardar, and he says, look at my crop. Now, is it a vegetable crop? It has already drained all the nutrients and moisture out of the soil. What is it going to do at the time when it is flowering? So this is the major problem. And fertilizers. Take a look at this website of the Ministry of Agriculture. Everybody. It's very interesting because over the past 7 years, fertilizer increase has been like nothing like ever before. 273 kilograms of nitrogen, of fertilizers in Maharashtra per hectare. Can you believe this? From 98 in 2002, 273, the national average is coming to 222. Almost at the highest level, even if we compare to the what does this mean again? It only means when you use more fertilizers, the hybrids do need them anyway. When you use more fertilizers, the crop becomes more succulent to the sucking pests. Sure, farmers use more nitrogen, more urea because it is under the statutory price control. So when the crop becomes succulent, when you're using more urea, crop becomes more succulent, it invites sucking pests, whiteflies. We had a meeting, a day-long meeting yesterday. When you invite the whiteflies, you'll have to spray to kill the whiteflies, and not one. So you go on spraying insecticides. Whitefly is not an easy pest to control with insecticides. Because of the white coating, it's a waxy coating, it's undersurface of the leaf. The more you spray, the more problematic it can get. And some insecticides like the synthetic pyrethroids, acephate even, there are many others, which can actually cause resurgence. Nowhere in the world do they use. So you go on spraying, and what did we end up with? To the pre-BT levels of insecticide usage. These data are from the Ministry of Agriculture, DES, Department of Statistics. So in summary, long duration, hybrid cotton, lot of pesticides, lot of fertilizers, there's no way out. Just a comparative table, Australia last year harvested more than 200 kilograms of cotton lint, India 523. I'd like to draw your attention to that third column, which is kg per hectare. All these other countries, everyone varieties. Like I said, out of 80 cotton growing countries, 79 countries are using varieties. India alone uses hybrids, and we think we are doing best. Stagnant yields, 10 years are now, it's almost 10 years, yields are stagnant. Nothing is making a difference. And no one wants us to speak like this. You should be saying that the production doubled. Area, 55% increase in the area, therefore the production increased. Kindly don't mistake me, I'm not against BT. BT did its job in a wonderful manner. It controlled the bollworm. There were two expectations. One expectation, reduction in insecticide use. Second expectation, protecting the yields. Protecting the yields, it did. And it is continuing to do, except in Gujarat a bit where the pink bollworm is having a problem. But yield, in terms of the pesticide reduction, we are failing. That is because of the stewardship problems, not because of BT. BT per se, BT technology or the toxin per se has got nothing to do with any of these problems. Primarily it is the stewardship. Where is that policy? Where is that thinking? Why did we get into this whole thing of 95% hybrids for the whole country and not 1 or 2 hybrids? More than 1,000. We were counting, it comes to 1,600, someone says 1,000, but even 1,000 is an absurd number, absolutely absurd. These are the problems with the country, but then this is a table I would not really want you to go through because there are some graphs that I converted, 95%, I'll skip this. Seed cost, these 2 lines, the first red line that you see is the introduction of Bollgard, second red line is the introduction, or actually the inception of Bollgard 2. From 2006, 2007 onwards. Take a look, seed cost increased. Insecticides, from the second line, you will see that there's an increase. These are the figures from the Ministry of Agriculture website. The latest is until 2012, but I put it on only until 2011. Insecticides are increasing. These are all official figures. There is nothing that, in fact, to contest about. So, from 1996 onwards, take a look. The rupees per hectare, all of a sudden from 2007, it starts increasing. In terms of kg insecticides per hectare, red line that you see is the net quantity. So from, let's say something like 1.2 kg per hectare in 2002, it actually crashed down. By 2006, everything was looking good. But after 2007, take a look, ups and downs, and now, until 2013, actually in 2014, it further increased because of the Punjab factor. Where are we heading? Are we going back to the same pre-BT days where we are going to use as much as pesticide? And if that is the case, what is it that we have done to cotton? This blue line is that of the area under cotton. So what you will see is that 38%, there is where these 2 lines intersect, insecticides had crashed. Probably even if we had kept it at 38%, would it have been at the same levels? I don't know. Maybe we would. But now, these are 2 sets of graphs. This set of graph is from the Ministry of Agriculture, and you can see that there is kind of a stagnation starting from after the introduction of Bollgard 2, absolute stagnation. This is from the Textile Ministry, from the Cotton Advisory Board, stagnation very clearly over the past 10 years. Irrespective, one interesting fact, one question which I would like to ask you, which you must think after this presentation is, take a look at the small bar of 2004. Area under BT cotton is less than 5%. But take a look at the yield, 463 kilograms of lint per hectare. With less than 5% of BT, we had already reached there. Don't lose track, don't lose sight of the fact that there were other factors as well which played a role in these yield increases. Certainly. So, it needs a lot of thinking, and I would insist that each one of you must start thinking on this, essentially because if we lose track, we also crumble down because we wouldn't know what caused anything. But this graph is important because it's about fertilizers. Why did farmers increase fertilizers? Even in Maharashtra, I said 273 kilograms in 2011. Why did farmers go in for so much of fertilizer usage? Simple, because the prices of cotton were very high. When the prices are good, when the market prices are good, they feel that the more you invest, the more you get. Those 5 years were terrible, really. All across the country, they started using, so insecticides also went up. This graph is very disturbing because this did not happen in any other country. It happened only in India. Like they say, it happens only in India. These are 2 lines. The dark black line is that of the yields, and the dotted line is that of the fertilizers. So there is a parallel there. The more fertilizer you use, the more it is giving you. What does it mean? Where was BT then? If this level of fertilizer was used, apparently the yields had to increase. And this is yet another thing. It is in terms of the total amount of fertilizers that were used, 1990, 0.94, 2001, 1.47, 2013, 2.3 million metric tons. This is only on cotton. Very clear that there were many other factors operating on the ground which were being completely ignored. So it is not a bulldozer to say that, well, BT came and the yields increased. Certainly not. So how can short duration varieties break yield barriers? I said cotton actually needs less water. It needs less nutrients initially. It actually needs more water, more nutrients at the flowering and boll formation stage. This is important. And then hybrids, if you can get 100 bolls per plant, you can get 4 tons per hectare. That is 40 quintals with the existing system. On the other hand, globally what they do is, if each plant gives you just 7 bolls, because the number of plants is very high, it is something like 1,66,000. In China, you'll not believe, there are places where they use 3.3 lakh plants per hectare. How do they do it? Paired row at 30 by 10 centimeter, and then 10 centimeter between the 2 rows in the pair. Amazing. Even 1 boll per plant will give you amazing yields. 2 bolls will double it up. That is how people are thinking. In India, we are yet to start. So just 7 bolls per plant would essentially mean that the flowering window is short, you can escape the pests. Now this is what it is. The rainfall in Vidarbha and Telangana starts in June, ends up by September. So if the boll formation happens in the month of October, this green line, that is the water requirement. If boll formation happens in October, the plants are thirsty. They don't get water, and they also become hungry because without water they can't eat. This is with a short duration variety where the boll formation happens just between August and September. It has adequate water because of the rains, because the soils, even all those marginal soils, can still hold water. Water is not as yet gone. This is the major difference. The moment you manage to give it water and nutrients, the rest is about insect pests. Quickly, I'll get to it. This blue that you see there, it's about the moisture availability. And here, there's a yellow block. That is about the American bollworm. Basically, it's a September pest. It comes in the month of September. If your boll formation, if actually flowering is over in August, you have escaped the bollworm. And what about the pink bollworm? It's a late season pest, it's a winter pest. If you harvest by the end of October, like it's happening in Vidarbha in many of our trials, if you harvest by mid-November, take my word, pink bollworm is not there. It doesn't come. Why is it happening in Gujarat? Because they're extending the crop. Because you're giving it a chance. It's a single season pest. It's a single cycle pest. So what are the technologies? What is it that I'm recommending? Compact varieties, short duration, high density planting, mechanization, because what I'm talking about is these determinate varieties where each plant synchronously puts forth only 7 bolls or 8 bolls under high density, and you can very conveniently harvest them. In fact, I must share this with you. The world moved towards high density not for high yields. The world moved towards high density because of the machines. First of all, there is no machine that can harvest a plant which is taller than 1 meter. There is no machine that can harvest a plant except the strippers, which is wider than about 2 feet. So they had to go ahead for this compact varietal breeding. In India, it has started only just before 4 to 5 years. We are just drawing close to something what we can call as good compact lines. So there's a lot of hope. We can do it. I firmly believe that we should come to a day where we don't really need many of these complicated technologies. In a simple manner, it should lend sustainability. Today, it is highly unsustainable. Nobody knows what will happen in any part of the country with which hybrid and where. It is like having a private baby in a public hospital. They simply call up the director, CICR, वहाँ पर whitefly है, आप क्या कर रहे हैं? So much to it. Nevertheless, legume-based cropping systems, because excessive dependence on urea can be reduced because legumes fix nitrogen. I'll not go into much of the details, but these are some of those factors which I feel that resistance to jacids and whiteflies, our germplasm is rich with it. So a bit of good breeding, we can have short duration varieties which are tolerant to the sucking pests, which complete their flowering in a short window, no moisture stress, under rain-fed conditions, and I'm sure we will walk through. These are some of those other strategies that I was talking about, but then I made my point to tell what we need to do in a sustainable manner, varieties with some of these intercropping systems. Intercropping systems, incidentally, also promote a lot of integrated pest management because, it is known whether it's cowpea or green gram and so on. So, and at the same time, I'm not even against any technologies. Wherever it's appropriate, we need to take them. but not losing sight of the fact that good stewardship actually plays the role, not a gene. Let's not believe that one gene can change our life. No, it's about the whole system, how you're fitting them. Globally, this is very important. They fit their cropping systems into their weather. In India, it is never like that. We blame the weather, but we never look at fitting our cropping systems. Fit your boll formation into the moisture regimen. Whenever there are rains, fit your boll formation there, and then you will succeed. Read any of the Australian papers. All of them have done that. That is why today they are global leaders. And that is what even CICR is doing now. But then we started a bit late. I'm sure we are catching up. So, friends, thank you for the patient listening. It might have, I might have ruffled some feathers, but I'm glad to do it. There's no point at this point of time, after 10 years of stagnation, for anyone to keep quiet. I've been speaking, but it's good. Let's discuss, let's debate, let's argue. After all, it is good for everyone. More bolls per plant, longer duration. Few bolls per plant, shorter duration. Escapes pests, escapes moisture stress, I would say, escapes even the nutrient stress. Thank you so much.